be.
The way that I wanted, but how you wanted to be. They say that 1 and 1 make 2, but you and me will know it's 3. I wish they'd get off our tree. Nana haya. The way that you do it, but how you do it. The way that I wanted, but how you wanted to be. Unana haya, unana haya haya, haya haya, unana haya.
Calm down. The price is right.
Madeleine was reported missing from this Portuguese block in May 2007 while on a week's holiday with her family and their friends. Her parents have always maintained that their daughter was abducted. Madeleine has not been found and no one has been held to account for her disappearance. Her parents had succeeded in turning the spotlight of suspicion off themselves.
Oh my god.
Oh god. Oh god.
Critics felt that the Macanns' priorities were wrong.
The focus should be on finding the child, one would imagine. And I've never been able to understand all the libel actions. Again, this is defensive. It's not proactively looking for the child.
Brenda Leyland was killed by the mainstream media for having an opinion.
An inquest in March 2015 concluded that Brenda had committed suicide. Oddly, a tabloid newspaper already knew what the outcome would be. There are many people online who echo what this woman, a regular poster on the Macann hashtag, says. Victim of an organised internet trolling campaign.
Brenda Leyland dead in room 449 of the Marriott Hotel. Not to give too much detail in court.
People who attacked his family online should be made an example of. Brenda was threatened, taunted and bullied by a shadowy group of online users, the so-called pro-Macanns, who spent hours every day online defending the belief that Madeleine had been abducted. This group issued insults and abuse to those who questioned the official story. The story of Brenda Leyland is a sad example of this. Brenda was what had been termed an auntie. She lived in Leicester, a short drive from the Macanns, and she had spent a number of years methodically investigating the case, including reading the Portuguese police files. And she was targeted online by supporters of the Macanns. Her personal details were compiled, and these ended up in the hands of Martin Brunt, a reporter from Sky News, who then doorstepped Brenda in an encounter captured for his roving camera crew.
It was a dossier of people who questioned the official abduction story of Madeleine McCann.
Sky News depicted the doorstepping of Brenda Leyland in a damning report called Macann Trolls, and it was aired on repeat rotation on October the 2nd, 2014. This woman uses Twitter to attack the parents of Madeleine McCann. On the internet, she's anonymous, not anymore. The report featured a former senior policeman and latterly friend of the Macanns. All three contributors had an axe to grind with Brenda Leyland, who had openly questioned their roles in publicly promoting the abduction theory, and they didn't attempt to hide their glee when Sky put her into the public domain. For Brenda Leyland, her virtual life had become alarmingly real, and as her image was beamed around the world, a media pack descended on her picturesque village.
On a London radio station, and he described how the dossier had been handed to police by the McCann family.
Leyland frequently tweeted about Clarence Mitchell. Indeed, many people on the Macann hashtag do. Certainly from the anti-side, those who question the abduction story, Mitchell is an unpopular character. Disturbed by her death and sickened by the public gloating of media professionals and others, I made a video defending the woman who had been demonised and only for asking questions about the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. I was shocked by the response my recording received. It was as if an artery had opened and support flooded in on my social media accounts. Many of the posters echoed the same question that I had already been asking: why Brenda? It was a fair question considering the volume of daily online comments about the case. Why had Brenda Leyland been singled out, even though Brenda used an anonymous avatar that she called Sweepy Face? Her personal information had been gathered together by a team of people working online to promote the abduction theory. According to modern parlance, Brenda had been doxed. Now her information, including place of work, where she lived and marital status, was in the hands of anonymous internet users, and for a menacing purpose.
Senior manager at Sky News testified at Brenda's inquest. He justified Martin Brunt's doorstepping on grounds of public interest, and that, to his understanding, this was a report about sort of online harassment. I took real issue with these comments, and here's why: because I don't believe that that report was in public interest. That was a report that was solely about the harassment, so-called alleged, of the Macanns. So that was only in the interests of the Macanns. And in that report, that infamous report, it featured Summers and Swan, the authors who had written a very pro-abduction theory book that they were publishing and publicising there and then in that report. Jim Gamble, a renowned and known pro-Macann abduction theory supporter, and this sort of anonymous lady who was said to be involved in the dossier. And so it was very much about the Macanns. That wasn't in the public interest, that was in the interest.
I have a quick word.
No, because I'm not.
Well, the problem is, I actually have questions from the general public.
Indeed, but that's
well, they
not
want to
relevant to
know.
tonight.
Well, no, it is. They want to know why a family of a missing child would require a PR machine. Why would they require that, Mr. Mitchell?
Because of people like you.
Engagement with the media properly began here, the night after Madeleine had been reported missing, and when Kate and Jerry spoke for the first time to the assembled press, and at highly impressive speed for a missing person situation. It had been clear from the beginning that this was no ordinary case, for in less than 2 hours of Madeleine's reported disappearance, the first news story had already appeared. How could they possibly have got the story so quickly, and why did they instinctively feel it was so newsworthy? Children go missing all the time. What was it that set Madeleine McCann apart from the rest? A member of the holiday party contacted British media first, something that is strictly forbidden in Portuguese law and which the Portuguese police told them not to do. This was ignored, and according to a police report, it was Rachel Mampoli, who was in the McCann's holiday party, who reached out to British media. As Jerry McCann contacting Sky News just hours after Kate raised the alarm that media had been contacted before even the Portuguese police were. However, the first recorded time of a call placed to police was 10:41 p.m, some 40 minutes after Kate first claimed to have discovered a missing Madeleine. There was a great deal of conversation about contacting the media. That media attention, public relations and reputation management has been a key part of this story since the beginning. As media began to arrive in Praia da Luz, John Hill, the operations manager of the holiday resort, immediately contradicted the McCann's abduction allegation. The holiday company, Mark Warner, responded swiftly to Madeleine's disappearance and drafted in their media representatives from Bell Pottinger. Arguably, several were already on site. Founded by Sir Tim Bell, a former aide of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, Bell Pottinger specialised in public relations, reputation management. Ex-Wolfel is known as Mr. Crisis. Some people may say the answer was clear: to get their daughter back, and sooner rather than later, but in the world of public relations and reputation management, the simple truth is often an elusive quality. Jerry McCann, his liking for bold statements of intent, and which would become a hallmark of his numerous media appearances.
One very interesting distinction about the McCann case is the behavior of Kate and Jerry. And I can tell you that I have never seen the kind of behavior exhibited by the McCann by any other parents of missing children. Behavior they exhibit is so out of whack as possibly being involved in the disappearance of their child.
British government, led by then Prime Minister Tony Blair, took over the press handling for the McCanns. Cherie Dodd was recalled back to the UK, and whispers amongst the press pack was that she had been indiscreet in questioning aspects of the government's involvement with the McCanns. The government took a further unusual step of dispatching Clarence Mitchell, the head of its media monitoring unit and a former journalist. This almost steely coldness, a clinical approach for the cardiologist that the general public struggled with, who, people wondered, find silver linings when their daughter goes missing and reportedly taken by a paedophile.
First 2 days, we didn't sleep much, we didn't eat much. But that was a few days, and certainly since then things have picked up.
I'm like, excuse me? 5 days after your child goes missing, you sleep through the night. How is this even, it's impossible through their mind. 24 hours a day is, my child is crying for me. My child is crying, mommy, mommy, daddy, daddy, come and save me. So to be able to lie in your bed and go to sleep while those thoughts are racing through your mind, it's ridiculous. It just does not happen. I've never seen a parent of a missing child ever say they could sleep. And usually they're on heavy medication because that is the only way they can sleep.
An advisor on site and at their disposal, and Clarence Mitchell was about to make the difference. With the well-connected media operator in the camp, Kate and Jerry were starting to assemble the team that would see them over the next decade. Mitchell was a big hitter, holding a senior communication role within Tony Blair's government. It wasn't long before Clarence's involvement began to pay off. It was as if the Macanns were touring pop stars rather than the parents of a missing child. They always respond the same way. They downplay criticism, which has become increasingly louder and more vociferous over the years, as the Macanns' unique ability to recover quickly, and vowed not to leave until Madeleine was found. Many people were starting to feel uncomfortable, as Jerry Macann appeared too readily to revel in the media spotlight. Mitchell returned to his post in London, and the Macanns headhunted their next spokesperson. Justine McGuinness was chosen by Kate and Jerry Macann because she was a public relations expert with political ambitions, having previously stood and failed to be elected as a Member of Parliament. Within months of Madeleine's disappearance, both Kate and Jerry were having meetings with politicians from different countries. But observers could already see that the Macanns had political ambitions beyond missing children. Many people, however, particularly those who had sent money to the search for Madeleine, were appalled that McGuinness had been paid such an extraordinary sum for less than 3 months' work. According to Justine's own website, Justine enjoys cutting through the world of spin to show how reputations can be made, destroyed or protected. Jerry Macann was clearly loving his new role as a media commentator. Jerry was attempting to control the media narrative by using the platform to tell journalists how they should report stories, and particularly his. He would later develop this and become part of a movement to censor British media. September 2007, Kate and Jerry Macann were questioned by the Portuguese police and made arguido. Meanwhile, McGuinness was outside the Portuguese police station, busy breaking the law on behalf of her clients. Portuguese law has strict judicial secrecy, which prevents details of an active investigation being made public. Richard Bilton, a reporter for the BBC, and the man responsible for misleading the public during the 10th anniversary documentary of Madeleine's disappearance. It was Bilton who claimed that witness Martin Smith had changed his mind about claiming to have allegedly seen Jerry Macann carrying Madeleine on the night of her reported disappearance.
I cannot think about going home without Madeleine. I certainly have no plans at all to go home without Madeleine.
So they promptly left Portugal and returned to their home in Leicester, England. They had been away for 4 months. Kate and Jerry Macann were openly accused of being responsible for the disappearance of their daughter, and this was not a time to work with anyone less than the heaviest of heavy hitters in communication.
And reputation management giants Hanover got the gig.
Clearly, the Macanns seemed to have quite a thing for ex-government spin doctors, because Hanover was founded by Charles Lewington, spokesperson for former Prime Minister John Major. Return is exactly what Clarence Mitchell did just over a week after Kate and Jerry had been made arguido.
I will simply be representing Kate and Jerry as a private individual, one who believes utterly that they are entirely innocent.
Mitchell gave up his job in the UK government as Director of Media Monitoring and stepped into the role of protecting Kate and Jerry Macann as a family spokesperson. The Labour government had forbidden Mitchell to have any further involvement with the Macanns because of their arguido status, but he had other ideas.
The arguido status needed to be turned around. Wealthy British businessman Brian Kennedy had one meeting and swiftly decided that he wanted to get the Macanns off, as he put it, and he would back them both legally and by paying the salary of the increasingly present and influential Clarence Mitchell.
Even his former BBC colleagues noticed. Writing for the BBC website, Laurie Margolis said of Clarence Mitchell, "It was extraordinary how last week his intervention seemed to eliminate within hours any misgiving about the Macanns in the British media. Her parents had succeeded in turning the spotlight of suspicion off themselves. The media attack dogs were brought to heel, several publications paid out hundreds of thousands of pounds in damages, and one newspaper group even took the fairly unprecedented step of issuing a front-page apology. Clarence Mitchell and their libel lawyer Adam Tudor were increasingly valuable assets to Team McCann. Critics felt that the McCann's priorities were wrong.
The focus should be on finding the child, one would imagine. And I've never been able to understand all the libel actions. Again, this is defensive. It's not proactively looking for the child. Why is there a need for them to protect their reputations, image of themselves onto the public as perfect parents who have never ever done anything wrong?
The McCanns, as many have noted, are far more focused on legal issues and their good name than they are about finding their child and doing everything possible to do so.
The advent of self-published and ebooks also proved problematic for controlling the abduction narrative. Pat Brown, an American profiler, published on Amazon a book about Madeline's disappearance. Within weeks, it came to the attention of the McCanns and their proactive libel lawyer, Adam Tudor, from the firm Carter Ruck.
I had written my book, which is called Profile of the Disappearance of Madeleine McCann, and I put that out as a self-published book on Amazon. And one of the things I made very careful to do when I put the book out was to not say the McCanns are guilty of a crime, because I personally do not know if the McCanns are guilty of a crime. The book simply went through the evidence. I analyzed all the evidence that I had access to at that time, and I put forth a theory. And as Jerry McCann would say, and has stated publicly, I have a right to purport a theory, which is exactly what I did. I said, this is my theory based on the evidence of what may have happened. Just on Amazon, right underneath Kate's book. Suddenly the book disappeared. And I was a little shocked. I was like, well, what happened to my book? And I wrote Amazon, and they sent me back a letter that said that they had received a letter from Carter Ruck, who represents the McCanns, saying that my book contains defamation. And for that reason, they pulled the book off the market.
Kate and Jerry have been meticulous in forcing the media to support their theory of abduction, and anyone who diverts from that has been penalised, including the Portuguese police coordinator Gonzalo Amaral. Over the past decade, Kate McCann in particular has talked about how the media invasion has been something of a sacrifice to them, how it was forced upon them. Observers found these declarations to be disingenuous, given the frequency of the appearances and the clear joy the couple seemed to derive from them. For many, the accusations of press intrusion seemed a bit rich, seeing as the McCanns had not only paid for media promotions out of Madeline's public fund, but they had also brought in the press to photograph their twins. There was a great deal of criticism at the McCanns being given a public forum in which to berate the very media institution that they had so expensively courted. Certainly, it was clear that the McCanns were intent on censoring the press, and Jerry even called for journalists to lose the right to report if they were reporting inaccurately. Some journalists wondered, did the same apply to doctors who lost their children on holiday? But it was Jerry's involvement with the media lobby group that concerned many. Hacked Off have used horrendous stories such as the murder of schoolgirl Millie Dowler and phone hacking to maul mainstream media, which is loathed by people within the organisation such as actor Hugh Grant. Hacked Off claimed to support victims of bad press, but did nothing to defend Brenda Leyland. Clearly, they had a vested interest. Bell Pottinger went into bankruptcy in 2017 when it evolved that the company was involved in dodgy practices, including influencing elections and manipulating internet search results. Certainly, there were comparisons made between the missing Shannon Matthews and Madeleine McCann. Shannon, a 9-year-old from the north of England, disappeared just months after Madeleine. It was later discovered that her mother was involved, having been influenced by the McCann's campaign to raise millions of pounds and hoping the public would be equally as generous with her. During the search for Shannon, and before it was apparent that her mother was involved, the media treatment of Karen Matthews could not have been more different to that of the McCanns. I heard colleagues refer to her in derogatory terms, opinions that were hidden in the articles but came out fully once it was revealed that Matthews was involved in the plot. Suddenly, it was acceptable to write in headlines what had only been said in newsrooms. Now Matthews was a scrounging and feckless welfare mother. She was the lowest of the low. It was hard not to believe that snobbery was also involved. The fact was, media and public treated Shannon and Madeleine differently too. While still apparently missing, Shannon did not warrant the type of reward that little Madeleine did. Both of these newspapers are from Rupert Murdoch's News International stables, but Shannon, clearly, was considered to be worth less than Madeleine. It was a shocking reminder that not everyone is considered equal on earth, and certainly not when it comes to one's media image. It was clear that the Macanns' middle class and professional status had helped them immeasurably in the eyes of the media and the public. There have also been comparisons between the disappearance of Madeleine McCann and American child JonBenet Ramsey. Certainly, there are similarities between the parents, as the Ramseys, like the McCanns, were able to control much of the proceedings. The Ramseys, as the McCanns, were treated with deference. They gave press interviews and did not fully cooperate with police inquiries, and yet still no one appeared to press them on answering questions about the finer details surrounding the death of their daughter, which they claimed, like the McCanns, was as a consequence of a predator.
It's not about us, you know. I think that the problem is it's this predator.
20 years since the murder of JonBenet Ramsey, and police and other sources have come forward and revealed that the case was beset with political and judicial interference. The Ramseys, like the McCanns, appeared untouchable, despite a recent claim from investigators that JonBenet's brother Burke had killed her. The Ramseys have always denied any involvement. Patsy Ramsey died in 2006. The British public have paid out multi-million pounds for an investigation for a crime that didn't even happen in this country.
Once boasted to me and a group of people that she regularly lunched with the McCann spokesman and took exercise classes with Kate McCann. Candola has been responsible for articles in British newspapers, including the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Daily Mirror, the Daily Express, the Guardian, the Observer and the Daily Star. In fact, according to Journalisted, the online site that captures articles published in the UK, Candola has penned at least 87 articles on the case.
In fact, here's a perfect example of how far and wide Candola spreads herself. 3 newspaper articles, all on the same day, all about the same subject matter, and all with the same spin. One has to ask how fair and balanced the newspaper coverage is in the UK about the McCanns if the vast majority of it is written by someone who is close to them. The general public appear to have had their fill of the McCanns. Certainly, his public persona, that of a cardiologist who had become a professor and had received glowing newspaper headlines for his work, showed that Jerry had functioned very well over the past decade. While it is clear that the McCanns have become friendly with a number of influential, famous people who long to speak out about what they have witnessed, but they fear recriminations. Sutton is a retired London detective. A TV crime drama about him is due to run on British TV shortly. Sutton was rumoured to be in the running for Operation Grange, the British police investigation into Madeleine's disappearance. He was warned off by a colleague. Colin has done a great deal of media work about Madeleine and understands the limitations of wanting to go beyond the abduction story.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been working with journalists infrequently for the last 6 years since I retired from the police, and I talk to them, and you know, people who trust me and who I trust, and I've told them this story of the warning that I got about Operation Grange, and to a man and woman, they've just said to me, "Don't go there. You know, that's not an avenue we wish to explore." And in fact, it was only this year when, you know, I was approached by Sky and I said, look, you know, I can bring something to this, something new, but I'm not sure it's something you want to hear and you want to go with. And they at least let me say it. And that was the first time that the story was out in the public domain. That wasn't for the want of me trying over the previous 6 years.
The control of British media and beyond is very real. The memory of the McCanns' big libel wins still impacting how journalists and editors portray the story for fear of getting it wrong again. Clarence Mitchell has done very well out of Madeleine McCann. He was not only financially remunerated for many years, but has also had business engagements based on his involvement with the case. One in particular, was in Australia. Clarence took spin to a new level. Researcher Richard D. Hall's dissection of this is well worth a watch. The truth, to Clarence Mitchell, has always been a moving target. In 2015, Clarence Mitchell decided to take his political links further and run for public office. Absolutely must answer to the taxpayer spend of multi-million pounds, of which he was heavily involved in maintaining the official narrative.
Speak with you. Can I have a quick word?
No, because I'm not.
Well, the problem is, I actually have questions from the general public.
Indeed, but that's
well, they
not
want to
relevant to
know.
tonight.
Well, no, it is. They want to know why a family of a missing child would require a PR machine. Why would they require that, Mr. Mitchell?
Require it because of people like you.
In the decade since Madeleine was reported missing, we've seen 2 middle-class doctors become media personalities. Significant amounts have been spent from Madeleine's fund, donated by the public. The maintenance of Kate and Gerry McCann as 2 upstanding middle-class professionals has required a great deal of preparation, protection and promotion. Why? And through all of this, their 3-year-old who stole the heart of the world is still missing.